Am I the asshole for announcing my wife's second pregnancy in front of my sister who cannot have kids and asks for my help to pay for her IVF? My wife and I have a 3-year-old son and we're expecting our second child next year. Both our children were conceived via IVF. We spent years trying for our first with no success, and it took 4 cycles of IVF to have him. It was brutal on my wife. But we both felt like trying for biological children was the way to go for us. We tried naturally for a second child after our first turned 1, but had 0 luck. We were left with the money for 1 cycle of IVF, which we decided to pursue if we didn't have any luck naturally, which we didn't. Around a year ago, my wife and I were gearing up to start the ball rolling on our IVF journey when my sister came and asked if she could have the money to try IVF herself. My sister has no bio kids but does have an 11-year-old stepson. She has endometriosis and PCOS and has never been able to have a child. Her stepson is not very close to her, and they've had problems with him since the start of their marriage. Her stepson has always brought up the fact that his dad married again too soon after his mom died and how my sister is trying to replace her. He ran away from home 3 times already. They also had the police and CPS on their door because he tried to get removed from their care. Our main reason for saying no is we wanted to give our son a sibling, but I can't lie and say that the dynamic in her home wasn't on my mind too. And I wasn't sure it was a good idea to bring a new baby into their home when things are as bad as they are. She was very upset with me for turning her down. She said she has no kids and we already have one and we'd give her a chance if we gave her the money. I shut her down. I told her my answer was no, and that was final. We waited for my wife to be far enough along before announcing our last IVF cycle worked. We did this at a family dinner. Everyone was so happy for us except for my sister and her husband. She started making snarky comments about how it was no big deal when we already had a kid. I told her, given our struggles, it was a big deal. Our parents told her she should be happy for us. She then starts ranting and raving about how selfish we are to deny her motherhood and to deny her and her husband the chance to have a family together. Our other sister pointed out about her stepson. She told her she's not his mother and he hates her guts, so it's not like she'll ever get any joy out of mothering him. I told her I was sorry she couldn't have a kid of her own, but she didn't get to demand we sacrifice a second child for her. She then told me I held her stepson against her. I told her I couldn't say that it hadn't crossed my mind that bringing a child into what is already a complicated mess would be a bad idea, but that it was beside the point because we wanted another child. She told me I was an asshole for humiliating her in front of the whole family and picking a fight with her. I told her she picked the fight, not me, but I didn't engage, so am I the asshole? Number one, it's the entitlement for me. Like, how are you going to sit here and feel like you're entitled for your sister to give, no, is it your brother? For your brother to give you money for IVF that he already has planned to use for him and his wife. The entitlement, the audacity, and then for you to sit here, not only feel entitled for them to give you money, but then act a fool when they announce that they're having a child and you want to say, oh, it's no big deal because you already have one. What kind of ideology is that a second child is no big deal because they already have one? Obviously, if they're using IVF, they've been struggling. And like I said, you have a lot of entitlement and audacity to just expect them to give you. Do you know how much IVF costs? IVF isn't cheap. And you just want them to give you money for it. And another thing is that IVF usually doesn't work on the first cycle. And they only have enough for one cycle. So what if that doesn't work out? What if you don't get pregnant that first cycle? Are you going to expect them to keep giving you more money? I mean, if you want to do IVF, my suggestion would be maybe you and your husband should, save up. Save up to do IVF if that's what you want to do. You can't expect somebody else to pay for that type of thing for you. I mean, if they wanted to do it out of the kindness of their heart, that's different. But you definitely wouldn't be getting out after you sat here and acted a whole fool because I told you no, and then my wife got pregnant, and you want to sit here and say, well, it's no big deal because you already have a child anyway. Excuse me? People really be having the audacity. So, Tell me down in the comments what y'all think about this. Like, was he the asshole, or is his sister a very entitled person for just expecting him to give her enough money for an IVF cycle that, I hate to say it, probably isn't going to work anyways, because most people who go through IVF or who know anything about IVF know that 9 times out of 10, it takes more than one cycle.